So I want to go back to the case for open borders because we talk a lot about the sad situation we're into, but there is hope. There are many people advocating for open borders, and I think there are.
I actually have a T-shirt that says open borders.
And I found two main arguments to justify open borders. And one is, for me, the one that I prefer, the ethical choice, which means we live in a planet that is interconnected, we have the technology to move around, we have the resources to move around. Who am I to prevent people from settling in a territory? Why, if I'm born in a certain territory or if I can live in a certain territory, my life is so much better than if I were not allowed. And for me, so there's an ethical choice that humankind has to take at a certain point in saying, okay, we stop preventing people from moving. There's not ethical justification. It's a human right to have access to opportunities, to live with basically what the fuck you want, and no one should prevent me from doing so.
I mean, and on your ethical choice, it's not only about opportunities, and so obviously you should prioritize people that need to move for their lives to find a safe haven for opportunities and so on. But apart from that, like, again, we share one planet. We literally share the resources and so on. How can anyone tell someone else you stay in this piece of land, whether it's the piece of land with the highest amount of opportunities and freedom?
Yeah.
Like, and this is where you belong. This is so weird. Like, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Borders, countries, whatever. We created at a moment where you couldn't just travel the world like this, where you didn't have all of this. It makes no sense. So ethically, let people be wherever they want. Like, there's also this argument.
And also without going to the topic of taxation, social benefits, but just the idea of me moving. If I want to spend a month, I should be allowed to do so.
All my entire life.
All my entire life. And the other one is an economic argument that has been like proved multiple times by anyone, is that wherever you have more immigration, you have more jobs, you have better economic growth, you have more diversity in your economy, especially for countries, normally wealthy countries where people want to move to, where normally there's a very low birth rate and very slow growth in the population. So it's convenient for people. If people could move beyond racism and the fear of diversity, xenophobia and so on, it would be very convenient. I mean, again, we talk about Italy at the beginning. Italy is a country where basically there are no more young people. Like, I'm simplifying, but the birth rate is well below the substitution rate. We are actually becoming older and older, and so having young migrants, whoever they are, where they come from, is very, very useful for the country, and same many other places. And so the fact that we're not doing that out of whatever spite, racism, xenophobia, is very counterproductive and will actually condemn countries like Italy to irrelevance and slowly disappearing.
And again, because for me, all of those arguments are so logical. It's like, we teach you in kindergarten, be kind to others, don't let others die, basically. Yeah, we do it through borders. Let's talk about this. Like, don't we also teach you in kindergarten that you should try to speak to people that think differently? Because it will enlarge your mind and it's good for you? Well, be with people and live with people that are different, come from different places, have different stories. It will just be better overall for your culture. You'll be less of a shit individual, and the country will do better overall.
I fully agree. I saw like it's ethically is convenient. So why is not happening? And I think that why it's not happening is related, obviously, to the same existence of nation states. So the fact that we have nation states is preventing people from fully move, and because of racism and xenophobia. And it's very important to understand that, because if you think that it's good to have tough borders, you have to understand why you're saying this. It's not good to have tough borders. If you think so, it's because you still have some inherent racism or xenophobia.
I think there's a huge simplification in what you're saying right now.
For sure.
Which is you forgetting an argument that for me is real, and I advocate for open borders, which is, no, it's resources. It's scarce resources. So unless you have a global system whereby you can collect global tax, you can deliver services from a global level in an equitable way across the planet, open borders will put a strain on certain countries. And this is undoable on the short term. You have a lot of, and again, by the way, open borders for refugees and so on right now, yes. On the long term, I'm open borders for everyone. Let's do it. But what I'm saying in the shorter term is, unless you create this global system of governance that we want to create, that is capable and has the power to administer some basic services and so on, you will have countries where already some people, including migrants, including refugees, don't have access to housing, and that will have even less. You will have less services and so on. Whereas with a global taxation service, you can redirect this when it's most needed based on the amount of population and so on and so forth.
I fully agree. I was just talking about something even simpler, so not relocation and which would require a lot of different systems to be in place, but simply the ability, if I'm Somalian, to go and visit the US.
I mean like open borders means like you do what the fuck you want.
I would love to see this happening, and I'm sure that we can make it happen. And I fully agree that to have a fully open border system, you need to have global systems in place, because if not, obviously the situation will be unsustainable from a social net point of view and so on. But what I was actually saying is also, let's start simple. Let's just allow people to travel without visas, or without being...
Or don't let people die in the Mediterranean.
Or not let people die in the Mediterranean. Or without the fear of being sent back from a border. You know, let's just do that. And I think we'll be already like 50% of what is needed to open up people's mind and understand that if you are Somalian and you want to go to the US, you are not a threat. And thinking that Somalia is a threat is a deeply racist and horrible way to think. And this being enshrined in a public policy of a massive country, it's a shame. Like in 100 years, in 200 years, people will look back and think like, were they crazy? Were they completely lost? And I think we are.
Definitely.
Colombe, we were pointing at a comment.
Miss Coffee says people don't go outside of their own bubbles. If you want to combat xenophobia, just read, talk, and travel. Yeah, but again, to travel, one, you need money and a passport to be able to go around borders, which not everyone can do because of second-class passports, citizens, and so on, as considered by the current world order. So I'm not, by the way, advocating for open borders for people to break out of their bubbles. I think we are all in one bubble or another. I'm saying it's the right thing to do, and it makes no sense not to have open borders. And also, we would all beneficiate from being with people that are different from us. You do so by being in schools with people that think differently, and when you go to middle school or whatever, you're confronted with people that are different, and it's good. It's good that you don't stay only in your family bubble and so on, so you are put in another bubble, sure, but still it enlarges it. So the more diversity, the more differences and so on, the better you'll be equipped to understand the world, the less of a shit individual you'll probably be, and so on and so forth.
I fully agree. We agree too much, man. We should disagree. Do you want to tell us before we close the live about any experience you might have had at borders that kind of like left you a sign or anything? There is nothing that you can think of,
no,
or like scene that you have seen.
What I was saying is like when you take the Eurostar from Paris to London and you see in Calais those lines of barbed wire, and it's not just one, it's 5, 6, like literally you're in the train and it feels like you're entering the Hunger Games, and you see the different districts lines.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like you see a first barbed wire super tall with metal and so on, and you're like, whoa, that's weird. At first, the first time you do it, you're like, probably there's been some accidents that want to avoid people from passing here. Yeah. Then another one, like 15 meters after. Then another one, and so on. It's insane. It's literally like it looks like a dystopian reality. And you see that all over. I haven't seen it, but if you look at, I forgot how it's named. Omis Coffee is from Spain, so you might be able to tell me. That piece of Spanish land that is on the African continent.
Is it Medina?
Medina. I forgot. Bordering Morocco.
Melilla. Yeah, Melilla.
Bordering Morocco, where there was just a report that came out, like, migrants were trying to pass over the fence and so on, and Ceuta and Melilla, and were literally like beaten up. Some people were disappeared, some people died, and so on by border forces. Like, it's crazy shit.
Yeah.
I'm seeing another comment. I'm thinking, for example, of the case of many Western Sahara people here in Spain who are stateless and need to apply for stateless status. We live this reality every day, but we don't care. Yeah, I completely agree.
How many people are stateless in the world, Colombe? I'm asking Colombe because she actually studied all of this, but she might not remember.
It was, unfortunately, a long time ago, stateless, and I had to give wrong numbers. In the world, 10 million people.
10 million.
No, that's 2014. There's definitely more today.
12 million in 2018.
Stateless people, so those are people that don't have a nationality or a passport, and which means that everything becomes incredibly difficult. You can't enroll your children in schools a lot of the time. You don't have access to services, you don't have access to your residency, and so on.
It's crazy. And what happened to these people? Do they normally get another passport?
So normally it's illegal basically to be stateless. You cannot, under international law, a country cannot allow you to be stateless. So you have to give those people a nationality. I think the rules differ whether it's the country in which they are or whatever, but countries just don't do it.
Crazy.
And it's often people that are heavily discriminated against and
Of
so on
course.
and so forth. So under the radar, more victims to abuse, more likely to be victims of abuse and so on.
That's crazy. It's very crazy.
And then there's another, sorry, it's not linked to borders, but since we're talking about nationality and holding a passport and so on,